Manish, you're muted.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Yeah, now it should be okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, okay. So a very warm welcome to you all. Good afternoon. Namaskar, Salaam Alaikum, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, friends from India and Bangladesh, ladies and gentlemen, friends. I'm delighted to host this important webinar on the future trajectory of India-Bangladesh partnership, which is steadily scaling new peaks and setting new benchmarks. It's enormously gratifying for me to see so many friends from India, Bangladesh, and other geographies who have found time to be with us today afternoon. We are live streaming this webinar on multiple platforms, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. If you have difficulty in accessing it on any one platform, please feel free to move to another platform. My name is Manish Chand. I'm founder and CEO of India Rights Network, an emerging think tank and media publishing platform focused on international affairs. We also publish India and the World, a magazine journal focused again on global affairs. We have recently set up Center for Global India Insights, a think tank that focuses on issues relating to Indo-Pacific, South Asia, China, Europe, and emerging powers. Our core areas of activities include IR research, publishing, media, and conferencing. In the past few months, we organized many well-appreciated and well-attended webinars on mapping next steps in India-Africa partnership from G7 to G11, India-Italy partnership, future of India, US partnership under US President Joe Biden. We also co-hosted webinars with the High Commission of Canada, among others. These webinars were marked by the participation of eminent speakers and unfettered independent discussions. We hope that our webinar, today's webinar on India-Bangladesh relations, will raise the bar and be equally successful. Now, let me try to unpack the master theme of today's webinar, India-Bangladesh Maitri 2.0, the way forward. The title of the webinar has been chosen with a lot of thought. The operative words here are Maitri 2.0, and the way forward. It is important to underline the emotive resonance of Maitri, which means friendship, and telescopes connections of heart and shared cultural and spiritual affinities that underpin this multifaceted partnership. Why Maitri 2.0? Maitri 2.0 denotes a new phase in this old and rooted friendship and partnership. Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Bangladesh, which for the first time saw a leader of a foreign country visiting places outside Dhaka on March 26-27, has opened a new Shunali Adhyay, a new golden chapter in India-Bangladesh relations. Prime Minister Modi has evocatively called this new 2.0 phase of India-Bangladesh relations a new urja, new gati, new energy, new momentum that is brimming with possibilities. The third word in the title is a way forward, which is self-explanatory and underlines that the discussions today will not focus so much on the past, glorious as it is, but mostly on the future trajectory of this mutually enriching and empowering partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, from commerce, connectivity, and cultural alchemy to frontier areas such as startups, artificial intelligence, and nuclear power, Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Bangladesh for triple celebrations, the birth centenary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, 50 years of Bangladesh's war of liberation, and 50 years of the establishment of diplomatic ties has raised the bar and opened new vistas in this multi-layered partnership. Based on the December 2020 Digital Summit and PM Modi's March 26-27 visit, the only way India-Bangladesh relations can go is up and up, climbing new peaks, setting new benchmarks. Talking of special bonds of friendship, I was fortunate to have seen it all firsthand during my visit to Dhaka for Prime Minister Modi's trip. In a departure from protocol, Sheikh Hasina, along with the senior ministers, personally received Prime Minister Modi at the Dhaka airport. Mutual warmth goodwill, and warmth of sentiments flowed spontaneously as Dhaka pulled out all the stops to welcome the Indian leader. To discuss the way forward for 2.0 phase of India-Bangladesh relations, we have an outstanding star-studded panel today. Between them, our panelists have decades of experience in engagement with India, different facets of India-Bangladesh relations. They bring first-hand experience and knowledge of issues at hand. At this stage, I would like to thank especially our two keynote speakers, Vikram Doraiswamy, India's High Commissioner to Bangladesh, and Ambassador Shahidul Haq, Bangladesh's longest-serving foreign secretary, who retired only recently. Our eminent speakers include Ambassador Veena Sikri, India's former High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Mr. Honorable Naeem Rajak, Member of Parliament, Bangladesh Awami League, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, former Secretary East, Minister of External Affairs, India, and India's former Ambassador to Poland, Thailand, and Italy, among other countries, Dr. Amena Hussain, Professor Dhaka University, Dr. Praveer De, Professor RIS. I will introduce them in detail when I invite them to speak. The detailed bios of our speakers in this panel are on our website, www.indiarights.org. At this stage, let me outline some housekeeping rules of engagement. Once again, I want to emphasize that the webinar is being broadcast on multiple platforms, including Facebook and YouTube channels of India Rights Network. All those, the audience which is watching this on these platforms, you can type in your questions, comments in Facebook and YouTube. This will be reflected in our StreamYard platform. Also, a brief note on decorum: please refrain from, posting improper, indecorous comments on any of these platforms. And yes, we encourage you to tweet about the webinar. Please tag at the rate of India Rights, DJII, hashtag India Bangla Maitri. Let me now introduce our keynote speaker, our first keynote speaker, Vikram Doraiswamy. Thank you, Vikram, so much for finding time amid your hectic engagement. I hear that India Chief of Army Staff is currently in Bangladesh, and you could, to honor your commitment, you found time to be here. So my special thanks to you. Presence of Vikram here has a special personal resonance for me, as he was my senior at St. Stephen's College in the late 80s, that many decades ago, but it brings it all very vividly. So Mr. Doraiswamy joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1992. He took my master's degree in history from the University of Delhi. In April 2019, he was tasked with setting up a new division at Ministry of External Affairs for the Indo-Pacific. Subsequently, after a promotion in December 2019, he was designated Additional Secretary responsible for international organization summits. Vikram has had very important portfolios in his very distinguished career so far. From October 2012 to October 2014, he was Joint Secretary of the America Division of the MEA. He became Ambassador of India to Uzbekistan in October 2014, before being appointed as India's Ambassador to the Republic of Korea in April 2015. His connection with Bangladesh goes a long time back, when he was also the head of division for Bangladesh and Myanmar in July 2018 onwards. I can go on and on. So, one can back in, look at his detailed resume on the website of the High Commission of India and Bangladesh. And of course, he has diverse interests. He speaks Chinese fluently, apparently. He loves travel and jazz, among other things. So, Vikram Doraiswamy, welcome to this discussion. We are really looking forward to what you have to say. Let me emphasize, ladies and gentlemen, that this webinar is structured in the form of Q&A. So this is not an occasion for making florid set speeches. Idea is to address that, to take the debate forward, because we have in the audience also a very informed, distinguished audience. who's broadly familiar with the outline of this relationship. So, Vikram, based on the highly successful December Digital Summit and the March visit of Prime Minister Modi, what's your big picture view? The visit is supposed to open new vistas, as they say, the new frontiers in areas such as technology and startups. These things sound very good on paper. They really sound good. What's the follow-up plan? How do you see this going forward? Over to you, Mr. Doraiswamy.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to share a virtual stage with so many distinguished speakers, two of my very distinguished senior colleagues who are legends in their own right in our service. I would want to highlight, so that I answer your question as specifically as possible, the fact that a few specific ideas have been put on the table as benchmarks or as road direction pointers for the way we should try and take our relationship forward. You've mentioned two of these. Basically, one is emergent technologies, new technology areas. And another, of course, is trade and commerce. The third is connectivity. And a fourth, I would say, which is a continuing aspect of it, is our shared history. Shared history is important because in the long scheme of things in the last 50 years, we've had moments where the central point of our relationship, the thing that really binds us together, are the importance, in a sense, of Bangladesh's liberation struggle, the scale of sacrifice that the Bangladeshi people put in to liberate their country, and our support and our empathy for that struggle. That is the fundamental point. And once we re-establish the centrality of that, we have a far better perspective of how the relationship should be taken forward. Problems notwithstanding, there will always be problems between countries that share such a long border and so much that is in common. But none of these need to take on the dimension of something beyond what exists in a reasonable scheme of things. So the centrality of history, the centrality of our connectivity in culture, our connection in culture, is one of the very important points emphasized as the roadmap for the way forward. When I talk about all of the four issues that I tabled just now, new technologies, trade and commerce, connectivity, and history, essentially this centers around one aspect. We are both among the youngest countries in the world in terms of the profile of the population. So bringing the new generation of future leaders of Bangladesh and India into a new interpretation and understanding of the relationship is going to be critical for getting the relationship forward. So in that sense, to have someone like Naeem Razak, an honorable member of Parliament of Bangladesh, a youth leader in his own right, is critical, because we need to be able to see that the sense of why the relationship is important is transferred on to the next generation, to transfer torch, so to speak. And also, how do you correlate the importance of the relationship in a manner that is relevant to the next generation of Indians and Bangladeshis, which is where technology, trade, travel, and the ease of doing business and the ease of connecting with each other comes in as essential focal points. Now, the Prime Minister's visit was intended to touch upon all of these, while also tagging the importance of dealing with here and now issues, everything from health to existing trade, commerce, and sort of managerial sort of problems that need to be taken forward.
All right. Thanks, Vikram. Other thing I just wanted to ask you very briefly, this visit received a lot of coverage, media coverage, and a lot of people to talk of the town. And people talk about the special chemistry between the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and Sheikh Hasina. Behind the scenes, what's your take on that? I was told a full vegetarian meal was served or something like that. I mean, how do you look at this special connection between the two leaders?
Look, first and foremost, I think to audiences in India, I think people in India need to understand the quality of hospitality in Bangladesh is second to none. The expansion of my waistline is directly a reflection of that. So, I think it's the scale at which our Bangladeshi friends turn on the hospitality for guests is second to none. And so the extent to which attention was paid to every little detail, to making sure that we felt that we had all the support we needed to run the visit. I can't tell you, in my career of dealing with visits, and I've dealt with a lot, this was really quite spectacular. Right down to, going down to things like demolishing walls in the outlying areas to ensure that we could, land helicopters, to sort of facilitating rapid movement of our people despite the pandemic, to ensure priority testing, everything. The Bangladesh government was spectacularly cooperative. Now, this obviously is more than just a reflection of the scale of Bangladesh's hospitality, which they are good with everybody, which they accord to everybody, but also the special nature of our relationship. Don't forget that they shared their platform of their national day, their 50th Independence Day, 26th March, with us. It's a signal honor. It is, in a sense, the highest honor that they could extend to us. And equally, for our Prime Minister to recognize it as such and make the effort of coming here during a pandemic was also intended to signal the importance he personally places on the Bangladesh relationship. So, I think that, didn't need vocalizing between the leaders. And then there is the fact that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and Prime Minister Modi have shared a very warm and personal equation over the last, nearly 7 years that they've both been leaders together. They've met several times, both physically in each other's capitals. They've met in New York. They've met by video conference. So, there is a comfort and a candor and a sense of, cooperation that exists in the relationship. They're able to say pretty much what they like to each other. There is great comfort in understanding how the other person thinks. I was very struck by it. It's quite remarkable to see how easily the two leaders pick up where they left the last conversation.
Right. Thanks so much for your tone-setting opening remarks and that glimpse from behind the scenes. We'll come back to some of the issues flagged off by you in your opening remarks. Now we turn to Ambassador Shahidul Haq. Shahidul Haq is better known as Bangladesh's longest-serving foreign secretary. He was Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh from January 2013 to December 2019. He is currently a senior fellow and adjunct faculty at the North-South University, Bangladesh, and also a senior advisor on migration and humanitarian policy at IOM Dhaka. His area of expertise is migration, and he's authored a book titled Migration Myth in Policy and Practice. He has several, honors to his credit, and I can go on and on. But among other issues of interest, the audience and fellow panelists would be interested, is that he was the Bangladesh government chief points person for negotiations with the Rohingyas. And he led Bangladesh side of the Bangladesh-Myanmar Joint Working Group on the repatriation of displaced Myanmar nationals from Bangladesh. The detailed resume is on our website. Now I turn to Ambassador Shahidul Haq. Ambassador Haq, Bangladesh's economic transformation and its rising stature is an unfolding story of our time. We in the region feel enormously encouraged by and happy at Bangladesh's success. Now, animated by this deepening economic partnership between the two countries, can you give us an idea of in what ways India and Bangladesh can collaborate in regional and global fora? More specifically, how can India and Bangladesh help create a positive narrative of win-win cooperation? And in a sense, can Bangladesh-India relations serve as a model or a paradigm for, at some point, for India-Pakistan, the permanently dysfunctional India-Pakistan relations? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manish, and thanks to all the panelists. Narratives. So I was asked to focus on narratives, and it's very interesting that narratives in the context of Bangladesh-India relationship. Right? So I tried to look at role and significance of narratives in Bangladesh-India relation and in terms of a little bit of a past, because you cannot see future before you look at the past. We were very fortunate that Bangladesh-India relations has been nurtured, established by our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman himself. So he said, it's really interesting how he narrated the relationship very early on in his time. Two ways. At the national level, at the government level, he said, it's a very special relationship. It's enduring and eternal relationship. And in terms of a people-to-people contact, also he defined, and it was interesting. He landed in Dom Airport in 1972 for the first visit, and at the airport facing the crowd, he said, "India is in our hearts, and the Indians are our brother." So that's the people-to-people kind of a message that he was giving in being people's man. So that's a narrative that went through ups and downs, and I think the thing I will try and do today is get the narratives out. Sometimes we do not possibly put enough emphasis on the importance of narratives in our relationship, and that's an area that has been bothering me for some time. So I'll share with you. And that narrative has again been sort of reiterated back in 2017 by the two Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in a very unique way. And I think we need to read it, and I'll read it from the joint statement. Quote: "Relations between India and Bangladesh are based on fraternal ties and reflective of an all-encompassing partnership based on sovereignty, equality, trust, and understanding that goes beyond a strategic partnership." Very interesting way of narrating Bangladesh-India bondage, not only in terms of past, but also in terms of future. And that has again been, in fact, reiterated. As Ambassador Vikram has just said how successful the visit was. The same thing has been narrated. Now, sometimes we do not see the strength of the invisible power of narratives, because narratives are description of reality by some people who use it in their favor. And sometimes those who are in the helm of the affairs, they do not understand or appreciate, recognize the strength of narrative. And I think that's where possibly we need to work in terms of our future, because unless we have a correct, realistic, pragmatic, open narrative about the relationship, the future likely to be quite difficult. Now, during my 7 years of foreign secretaryship, one thing I've understand that in our foreign policy exercise, India is central in every sense of the word. It is not only within the bilaterals, but also within the regional and international arena, and that sometimes also sort of gets into the dark because of the sometimes very negative narratives that are in the media. That's very unfortunate. So that's something extremely important. And the second part was the how we play that narrative into the international arena. Now, coordinating something at the international level needs a number of factors to come together, and also coordination and coherence at a multiple layer. Because there, when we are placing ourselves, both India and Bangladesh, in the international politics, we are actually not playing only within the bilateral middle, but also in the international middle, on one hand. On the other hand, there we have our national interests versus international obligations that continue to get rebalanced. And within that, narratives are defined, relationships are built. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There are recent examples where, really very well coordinated things have been done very successfully by the two countries within the chemistry, the bigger chemistry of it. In fact, Bangabandhu, when he was in Delhi in the banquet, said and said that time has come when we should sort of forget about our past, forget about our conflict. Let's get together for the people. And that was a very strong narrative that got lost altogether in our history. So that's something very interesting. Now, I know that I don't have much time, but I want to sort of give some principles, sort of reiterate some principle in terms of forward moving that we are. Very simple. The first is do no harm. I think we have to bring these things out in our relationship to clear out the cloud. Do no harm on any circumstances, anywhere. It's bilateral, multilateral, regional. Whatever we do, it has to be mutually beneficial and has to be seen by the people. That's important. Peace with stability is critical, especially in the bordering area, and that has been a big obstacle for moving faster pace into the future. And the whole issue of how do we nurture the mutual trust and confidence. Now, I will stop here with the questions, and I'll come back identifying some of the future areas where we can have a new narrative. I know Ambassador Bikram has closely monitored. He has been trying to build some new narrative or develop some new narratives in our relationship based on some realistic expectation from the both countries. Now, one thing I will end at this stage. So now, sometimes we feel that possibly we need to pursue a populist foreign policy. That has been the craze lately, Europe, America, wherever you go. I feel that the populist foreign policy is unlikely to create a bond that you are talking about, either 2.0 or 3.0. I think it's 3.0 rather than 2.0. And if there are questions, I'll be very happy to answer why I think the Maitri Bandhan is 3.0 that we are looking at. And what we are actually should focus on is the people-centric foreign policy. People-centric foreign policy doesn't essentially mean populist foreign policy. So that's a question I will leave with, and we'll possibly come back at a later stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Ambassador Haq, for those very illuminating remarks about the importance of narrative and people-centric foreign policy, pursuing people-centric foreign policy. We will probably come back to some of these issues, and thanks for being admirably precise. Now we move on to Honorable MP from Bangladesh, Mr. Naheem Razak. Ambassador, he is sort of a youth icon leader in Bangladesh. He's a member of Bangladesh Awami League. He has been elected for the consecutive third term as a member of parliament from Shariatpur 3 constituency. He is currently a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He has also served in the Parliamentary Standing Committee in the Ministry of Disaster Management, Youth and Sports, and among other things. From our point of view, the most important part on his resume is proactive, trend-setting involvement with the youth affairs of the country. He is the founding convener of National Youth Platform called Young Bangla, which has steered his party's policy of youth engagement and played a pivotal role in forming the national youth policy. He's also the co-chair of Dhaka Global Dialogue, which has been created to stimulate and engage global leaders this Asian century, where Dhaka can play an important role in connecting South Asia to Southeast Asia. With this brief introduction, I now turn to Mr. Razak. Prime Minister's recent visit to Bangladesh, and as Ambassador Duraiswamy was also mentioning, one of the major takeaways was this focus on youth connects, that we need to take this relationship to the next level by proactively roping in the youth of the two countries, building a youth Maitri bridge, so to speak. As a young MP, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Razak is incredibly young. He's just 41. Could you share some of your ideas, initiatives for deepening youth interaction between India and Bangladesh, so as to groom the next generation to nurture this very vital relationship? Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Manishji, for inviting me into this conversation. Of course, we have heard from the Honorable High Commissioner and the former Secretary of Bangladesh as well. And of course, we have eminent speakers here as well. So, good afternoon to everyone. Of course, I think Modi ji's visit was a historical visit itself, especially in the light of our historical special bond that Bangladesh and India has. And the young generation of Bangladeshis, they relish this and cherish this historical bond. What we need to do, in fact, what Vikramji said, is that create an ecosystem where we can connect the youth of both of these countries. Now, emerging technologies, of course, social media, connectivity, these are very important aspects. Trade and commerce, of course, is of eminent importance because the young generation, they want to see and learn and collaborate together in creating their own um, business connectivity. We have to create an ecosystem where we share the emerging ideas that bonds us together. As a regional powerhouse, India, of course, we look up to India in terms of taking a lead in terms of bonding this relationship. The young generation, of course, are very much connected with regards to the education sector, health sector, and of course, collaboration. And if we do follow the joint statement, which has been produced by the Honorable Prime Minister of India to Bangladesh, the visit itself, we can see that there have been a couple of very interesting ideas which has come up. For instance, with regards to scholarship programs, with regards to acknowledging Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and of course conveying the Gandhi Award. So these are all a way to bridge these two young countries together. Now, from my point of view, I have had a couple of more dialogues with the Honorable High Commissioner as well as with our own fraternity and the bigger diaspora. What we see is that Bangladesh needs to know how to actually take these opportunities and connect well for our own young generation. Now, in those contexts, we need to be more kind of proactive in terms of disseminating these ideas across the board. Hence, of course, we are preparing ourselves, Bangladesh and India, in terms of different uh, levels of our dialogues and forums. We are trying to create more kind of idea generation and collaboration. Unfortunately, the last 1.5 years has been really has put a dent into our own initiatives due to the global pandemic. But we are hopeful that we can start and jumpstart the whole process again. Now, the question that you say, there is a huge aspect that needs to be worked on from both ends, which is the image and the perception. What our former Foreign Secretary Shahidul Haq said, the narrative. The narrative needs to be very clear as to how we can benefit each other. Of course, I always say that Bangladesh and India has such a strong bond, then why there is some disparities and among some of the groups. So those groups which creates issues related to politicizing some of uh, the the domestic issues, that needs to have a countermeasure actions from our end as well as from our counterparts. If I am very clear in terms of my statement, then it would be that we need to be more engaged. Of course, a lot of trade and commerce, connectivity, water treaty, a lot of other things have come across in this visit from the Prime Minister of India and Bangladesh into the joint statement. The joint statement is very thorough and very clear, and of course it is reciprocated across the board. But then again, the younger generation needs to be engaged in policy dialogues. They need to know what the expectations are, what the opportunities are, and that is where I think Bangladesh and India has to work towards community building. And these community building activities can do wonders in terms of building our relationship. Of course, my father has been a freedom fighter, and of course by inheritance of course, we understand the importance of Bangladesh and India relationship. And that is where we need to take more precedence. We need to take more proactive measures in terms of creating a bigger narrative that is a win-win situation for both the younger populations across the board. So from my note, I don't want to elaborate more, but rather I want to encourage and seeking ideas where we can be more engaged as policymakers. The bigger diaspora of the youth platforms need to be engaged into community development and building bridges between these two countries. So that's from my end on a short note, and I'm happy to take any questions if it comes through. Thank you.
Thank you so much for very terse but very pointed suggestion. Community building, getting the youth to come together, and I think this is going to be an ongoing process that needs to be taken to the next step. Of course, there will be questions for you. We'll come back to that. Now we move on to our next speaker, who's Ambassador Veena Sikri, a veteran diplomat. Ambassador Sikri's career and experience straddle the worlds of academia and diplomacy. She has served for 37 years as a career diplomat, with stints as High Commissioner to Bangladesh and to Malaysia, and as Consul General in Hong Kong and Director General of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. She has held challenging and prestigious assignments at the Indian embassies in Moscow, Kathmandu, Paris, the permanent mission of India to the UN in New York. She's currently working on a book titled The Geopolitics of Bangladesh. She is founding trustee and convener South Asia Women's Network and vice chairperson South Asia Foundation. The detailed bio is again it's available on our website. Turning to Ambassador Sikri, I wanted to focus on the Bangladesh emergence. Bangladesh has emerged as an economic star of sorts of the region. And it's an unfolding story. India has emerged as one of the fastest growing economies. And then there was a lot of talk during Prime Minister Modi's visit about the next steps, in the India-Bangladesh Economic and Development Partnership. Already, Bangladesh is the largest recipient of India's development assistance at $7 billion plus. And Bangladesh is the largest recipient of India-made vaccines. So there is a lot going on already. What, according to you, would be the next big steps in these two areas? Over to you, madam. You got to unmute yourself. No.
I forgot. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for organizing this excellent discussion, and thank you for inviting me to participate. And I must thank High Commissioner Vikram Duraiswamy and Foreign Secretary Shahidul Haq and Honorable Member of Parliament for their wonderful presentations. Well, let me see. I'd like to add something on the economic side in response to your question. I think the most important aspect of the economic development as we look ahead is that both Bangladesh and Indian governments are fully focused on this aspect of their growth. For Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, right from the time she started her second term in 2009 and continuing now into the fourth term, the economic growth story has been remarkably positive, remarkably successful. It has been for her a single focus, a single important central focus, and she has succeeded enormously. India rejoices greatly in the success of Bangladesh. You're graduating out of the LDC status. This is a matter of great pride for Bangladesh, and we rejoice in that. You've had a consistent rate of growth that is very good, and great, in alleviating poverty, large numbers of people. I myself think that the progress on gender issues in Bangladesh has been remarkable, and Bangladesh's remarkably excellent performance on gender issues throughout South Asia is very good. Now, on Indian side too, for Prime Minister Modi, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas. This has been the central point of his program ever since he became Prime Minister in 2014. And I think that, and he has shown that through the remarkable number of reforms that have done, the changes in the economy, the growth of the economy. Now, with these two great similarities, I think this is a natural fact that we come together through economic development. And we have seen this, in fact, indeed, in all the meetings that have taken place at our prime ministerial levels, in the joint statements, even now in the remarkably historic visit of our Prime Minister on 26-27 March, and even in earlier in the virtual summit and so on. So based on all these decisions, I won't go into the details, there's no time, but how do we look ahead to it? I thank High Commissioner Vikram Duraisamy for mentioning those 4 key areas, but I think that we have to see how the progress up to now lays the basis for future growth. And here, I think connectivity is certainly a key area. And here, I would like to bring in this context of connectivity, the fact that, this has been talked about for a long time, and we're looking, of course, at undoing what was shut down in 1965. Before that, it was always free connectivity and so on. But a lot of the time in the last 50 years, where the perceptions about connectivity were totally different on both sides. And there was a great deal of sensitivity and, in fact, misunderstanding about it. But I must say that now, as we have seen the progress in the last 6-7 years, not only have we seen implementation of a large number of projects on connectivity, very real. Maitri 2.0 was inaugurated a few weeks ago, Chittagong, use of Chittagong Port and Mongla Port. This is all remarkable. But how this is now fitting into the priorities of both countries. I think Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has said very clearly that for her, the sub-regional development, the BBIN, the Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, the BIMSTEC, the purchase of electricity from Nepal and from Bhutan, and all these factors, everything is coming through connectivity, tourism, commerce, exports through waterways, goods going through Bangladesh waterways and roads, all Bangladesh entrepreneurial activities taking place to facilitate this. So this is a matter of fact that this is benefiting both countries, and this should be the leitmotif of all our cooperation. And I think this is absolutely tremendous. I think specifically look at the future, how this connectivity success in the projects will boost the trade between India and commerce, India and Bangladesh. The Bangladesh exports have already crossed $1 billion. It can cross many more. Bangladesh, long before India reaches Northeast India through Bangladesh, it is Bangladesh entrepreneurs who will reach Northeast India. They will get the access to the Northeast India market. And already we've seen that happen. So this is a great success story. And I think we're going to see a lot of this in India, Bangladesh too, as you put it. Now, I think here I would like to also bring focus on the 2 special economic zones that have come up for India in Bangladesh, Chittagong and Mongla Port. The Chittagong special economic zone has made good progress, and you're already seeing how it's being developed. And these ports, these special economic zones will be the focus for joint investment. The focus for Indian investment in Bangladesh, the focus for joint India-Bangladesh investment for the benefit of Bangladesh, for the benefit of Northeast India and the rest of the country. So I think that this is in fact going to be a great success story, and I think we should work on this and make sure it is a great success and is carried forward in a very positive way. And I think here this is very significant because again here in the perceptions that are built up about it, it should be done in a positive manner to show the mutual benefit and the mutual trust that is going into building up these special economic zones. I think disaster management is another area on which Bangladesh and India can cooperate enormously, because I think that this is with such a long shared border and with such important areas like climate change. We have, Bangladesh Prime Minister is a chairperson of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, and I think this is a very important area for Bangladesh and India to work together. We need to specifically work out projects that will work. The Sundarbans project was one project that was agreed upon a couple of years ago, but we haven't seen much progress or specific progress. I think this needs to be worked on. Disaster management on various ways. It could be through earthquake, it could be through, as I said, Sundarbans, it could be in many other ways, and we should work on it. I think that another important area is the blue economy. The fact that India and Bangladesh have a completely agreed maritime boundary now, this is quite remarkable. It was hanging fire for so many decades, and it went into arbitration, and India and Bangladesh fully accepted the results of the arbitration. This is quite remarkable and in keeping with the good relations. So now we need to work out an actual project of blue economy cooperation, of maritime cooperation, whether it is through having joint fishing fleets, joint exploration, and there are many ideas that we can work out. I do think that Bangladesh's participation in this is very important, just as I feel that Bangladesh's participation in matters concerning the Indo-Pacific. And indirectly, of course, here the Quad comes in. But here, Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal, they're very vital for the success of a peaceful and stable Indo-Pacific. And so I think that this is a very important area that we should work on. I know that I don't have much time, but I'd like to mention one aspect that I think both India and Bangladesh need to concentrate on, and this has not received the attention it deserves, and that is the attention of financial connectivity. This is one big lacuna. I know that with my South Asia Women's Network, when I want to do conferences in Bangladesh and so on, the biggest problem is the financial connectivity. You can't do financial transfers. You have to go via New York, or I don't know where else, and it's very difficult. So if we want the economic cooperation to prosper, and for young people of Bangladesh, as Honorable Member of Parliament Naeem Razak said so correctly, we have to involve them. They are the best entrepreneurs in the world, I think, today. And if we can involve them, they need the financial connectivity. And if we talk of financial connectivity, then we have to talk of the IT connectivity also, the ICT, information and communication technology connectivity. We have worked on this. There is some progress in this. We have been able to work on that, but we need progress. So these are the two projects of the future that I would say: financial connectivity and ICT connectivity. I think the trade connectivity is very good. The young entrepreneurs going for startups is a great progress. The scholarships are very good. All this should be implemented very fast. But I know that with staunch and very active people like High Commissioner Vikram Duraiswamy there, all this will happen very soon. Thank you very much. Oops. Oh, mute.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks so much for that very eloquent exposition of the new areas where the two countries should be working on, especially your ideas on financial connectivity, ICT economy, and blue economy. All these areas, I'm sure, will see visible movement forward in the coming days. Now I come to Ambassador Anil Wadhwa. Let me briefly introduce him. Ambassador Wadhwa served as Secretary East in India's Ministry of External Affairs and served as Ambassador to Italy, Thailand, Poland, and Lithuania, and Sultanate of Oman. He was a United Nations Disarmament Fellow in Geneva and India's permanent representative to several Rome-based United Nations agencies. These days, he is a distinguished fellow at VIF. We are also fortunate to have Ambassador Wadhwa as one of our distinguished advisors for India Rights Network and India in the World. He works a lot on Indo-Pacific, Quad, and these subjects which are of much topical interest these days. Ambassador Wadhwa, my question to you would be, how do you see Bangladesh's role in India's Act East and Indo-Pacific policy? In what concrete ways, India and Bangladesh can collaborate in Indo-Pacific? And one more question, and I'm right now reflecting the many questions that have come to us on WhatsApp and other platforms about China's growing influence in Bangladesh, and what should be India's strategy to deal with it. Over to you, sir. You have 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Manish, for your kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here with this panel, very eminent people who are associated with Bangladesh for a long time. Now, as far as your question is concerned, there is no doubt that Bangladesh is a very important link in India's Indo-Pacific policy and Act East strategy. which has actually come to converge, as Ambassador Sikri mentioned, with the BBIN and BIMSTEC initiatives, also India's neighborhood first policy, and most importantly, uh, the development and connectivity of the northeast states of India with the outside world. So while the trilateral highway, which has been in the making now for many years, will be connecting India's northeast via Myanmar to Thailand and then on to Vietnam, the development of the Northeast is very crucial so that it does not become a recipient of cheap goods and can also export this produce to improve the livelihood of its own people. And therefore, connectivity with Bangladesh to improve the well being of India's Northeast is crucial. The second point I'd like to make is that access into the Bay of Bengal and the rest of India through Bangladesh is also very essential for harnessing the unutilized economic capability in the northeast states in India. So Bangladesh is, for example, is a very important link in the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project, and which will then link Calcutta with Sitwe port in Myanmar by sea, then Sitwe to Paletwa in Myanmar via the Kaladan riverboat route, and then Khalifa by road to Mizoram state in India. Also, a very important development is that Bangladesh has agreed in December 2019 to offer transport and transit rights to the northeast states of India. That significance is not lost on the northeast states. They're very happy with this development. And then we've had a number of connectivity projects that have come about recently, including the Agartala Khora Railway project, and the Padma Bridge getting ready, and the construction of the Feni Bridge, etc., etc. So this will all give a tremendous boost to connectivity for this region. Now, in the wider Indo-Pacific region, of course, India has been advocating a free, and open, prosperous, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. And here again, India would like Bangladesh to work with it in ensuring that that it gets its full support in the region for this cause. And the second part of your question was on the question about collaboration between Bangladesh and India in the Indo-Pacific. So, first of all, as I said earlier, Bangladesh occupies a very key geographical position in the Indo-Pacific. It is a littoral of the Bay of Bengal, a region which is integral to the Indian Ocean, also a major maritime trading route. And when there was a visit, I remember in October 2020 by then U.S. Deputy Secretary of State in the Trump administration, Stephen Begun. At that point in time, Bangladesh and US had issued a common vision of the Indo-Pacific. Even though I think this is my personal opinion, when I stand to be corrected, that Bangladesh would like to concentrate on the economic dimension rather than the security dimension in the ongoing issues of South China Sea and beyond, which involve primarily China, United States, ASEAN, etc., etc. But we also have before us collaboration between China and Bangladesh and the Belt and Road Initiative. And again, our own joint statement during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Bangladesh in March, which we're talking about, that also highlighted the fact that Bangladesh will assume chairmanship of the IORA for the first time in October 2021, which is very significant. And India and Bangladesh have pledged to work together towards greater maritime security in the Indian Ocean. That's a good development for the future. And I think if Bangladesh can gain substantively from connectivity, from infrastructure and trade, which is the primary Indian agenda in the Indo-Pacific. And I'm not talking now of the agenda of other countries like the United States. But it must be borne in mind that Bangladesh is an important partner, of course, of the United States and Japan as well. And these countries, along with India, have also decided to collaborate in resilient supply chains, in the development and distribution of vaccines and strategies to fight the pandemic in the region, as well as collaborating on climate change issues. I mean, all these issues, I think Bangladesh can work together with India and the others. India has also put forward its Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative with the 7 pillars, which is maritime security, maritime ecology, maritime resources, capacity building and resource sharing, disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology, and academic cooperation, and trade connectivity and maritime transport. Now, all these areas are such that there is an ongoing interest from both sides already in the bilateral context between India and Bangladesh. But because the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative echoes India's pluralistic approach of engagement and focuses not only on the ASEAN centrality, but also on the Indo-Pacific connectivity, a sustainable infrastructure and economic cooperation leading to regional integration. This might be of interest to Bangladesh. And as a key connectivity and trade partner of India, Bangladesh can work with India in the areas of maritime security, maritime domain awareness, connectivity, disaster risk management, which Ambassador Sikri also referred to. And this is going to lead only to better economic stability and sustainability and prosperity of the region. The third part of your question, Manish, was on China. I think East to itself, as far as China is concerned, we know that China is an important development partner of Bangladesh, and it has promised to put in as much as $24 billion. Not all of it, of course, has been realized. But every country works towards the betterment of its bilateral relationship. And I think India is working on its own in partnership with Bangladesh, looking at issues which actually concern us. If we start looking at others all the time as to what they are doing, we are not going to get far. So I would say that we should concentrate on what are the best forms of collaboration between India and Bangladesh, and I think leave the others to do what they're doing. And it's a question of clustering together and not dividing each other. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Ambassador Wadhwa, for a very all-encompassing view of what India and Bangladesh can do in the Indo-Pacific. And plus, your very eminently sensible suggestion, about India doing its own thing and not getting dragged into these invidious comparisons. Thanks so much. Now we move to Dr. Amena Mohsin. Dr. Mohsin, welcome. Mohsin teaches in the Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka. Where is this now? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So Dr. Mohsin graduated from the same department and later received her MA and PhD degrees from the University of Hawaii, US and Cambridge University. Dr. Mohsin received several international and national fellowships. He is the author of The Politics of Nationalism, The Case of Chittagong Hill Tracts, Bangladesh, the Chittagong Hill Tracts, Bangladesh on the Difficult Road to Peace, and Ethnic Minorities of Bangladesh, Some Reflections on the Rakhines. Quite a few books to her credit. So now, Dr. Mohsin, we move to, basically, I would like you to address a couple of pointed questions, which is a subject on which we have got also several questions and a subject of great concern outside about the politics of Islamism in Bangladesh. That radicalism, extremism, this one thought this was the issue that is behind Bangladesh in some ways. This was, but again, it resurfaced. We saw some of that during ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Dhaka, where several protests took place in which apparently these fundamentalist radical elements are involved. So could you talk a little about that and what it could mean potentially for India and India-Bangladesh relations? And maybe second question briefly you could address, because your subject is an area of specialization for you, about what India can do in resolving the Rohingya crisis.
Thank you very much. If I may come to your first question, when you say politics of Islamism, I mean, I'm personally, I'm a bit uncomfortable with this word. I mean, the way it has been framed, the politics of Islamism. I don't think that in Bangladesh we have this kind of this kind of politics, which can be characterized as politics of Islamism. What we are witnessing is, you know, one has to, I mean, as an academic, I'm speaking, one has to draw a distinction between violent extremism and which is religiocentric. And again, one has to be, think and talk about the use of politics in the uh, domestic arena. And I guess what we witnessed prior to what your question was about, prior to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, and also which we are witnessing now, is a manifestation of uh, uh, some religious forces, or they are doing politics in the name of religion. That is a different issue. I mean, if I talk directly, if take it head on and talk about what Hifazat Islam is doing. If technically I cannot categorize Hifazat Islam as a violent extremist group, it is not a violent extremist group, but some of its activities, you can say, are those of are, one can characterize as violent extremism, but it is not an organization which can be characterized as a violent extremist group. And I would say that this is a like a domestic issue in Bangladesh. And if since your question was, and I'm pretty sure that Bangladesh would be able to take care of it and handle it, in a very matured way. And already, we are taking full cognizance of it. Regarding your question on, what is its impact going to be with India, I don't think that it is going to have any major impact with India, because if you look at, I mean, we have seen the rise of religious nationalism in our neighborhoods also, but that has not affected the foreign policy or the foreign policy aspects or bilateral relations between countries. As the His Excellency the High Commissioner of India was talking about the new technology, trade connectivity, trade and commerce connectivity, and we have been hearing about the different kind of narratives, and the narrative has to be forward looking. So if, like, foreign policy is always anchored on, since this is the ground reality now. Connectivity is the ground reality. I can understand that there are certain caveats within it, and which Ambassador Shahid was also trying to point out, that one has to bring in the people's narrative. And foreign policy, it's not only about what regimes are talking about, but also what people are talking about. That is very critical for us. And what people are seeing and people's perceptions are very important. So there, I think, people's the connectivity, which is people centric, and the sensitivity towards the sentiments of the people, particularly when it comes to religion, and the statements, which uh, hurts the religious sentiments of the majority of the population. I think these are things that our political leaders should be more sensitive of, I would say. And that's why I'm saying that I do not want to carry that this domestic politics into the arena of foreign policy, and I do not think that it is going to uh, impact upon India Bangladesh relations, because this is anchored on certain firm moorings, and one just cannot say that just because certain forces are in play or in operation at the moment in Bangladesh, uh, that it is going to uh, uh, impact upon bilateral relations between the two countries, because we have long-term relationships which are not only economic development. We are talking of cultural connectivity. Veena was talking about issues of women's empowerment, youth exchanges, and in a globalized world, these issues will not stand as barriers towards long-term foreign policy, because foreign policy is, after all, about a vision. It is about a policy. It is not periodic relations that take place from time to time. Regarding your second question on the Rohingya issue, uh, mm, yes, Rohingya issue, I think it is a major problem. And in Bangladesh, I'm sure the audience over here is well aware that Bangladesh is hosting about 1.1 million Rohingyas. And as Ambassador Shahid had said, that foreign policy is something which has to be seen. And when we talk about narratives, I mean, this is a narrative. Again, we are hearing about neighborhood first, India's policy of neighborhood first, which we welcome. And that should be, even for Bangladesh, our foreign policy is friendship towards all, malice towards none. So neighbors are very important for us. But, when it comes to the Rohingya issue, somehow Bangladesh's expectations from India were that India would come forward and, will give support to Bangladesh in a more effective manner than what we are seeing at this point of time. I mean, I'm aware of the fact that India has promised that it will support Bangladesh even with Myanmar, but we are also aware of the fact that India has leverage with Myanmar. India has major investments in Myanmar, and India is a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council at the moment. Indian abstention, from voting came as a. I mean, I'm talking about the people of Bangladesh. It came to us as a shock that India abstained from voting on the Rohingya issue. And also, I would like to point out, it also comes to us as a surprise, given India's role in 71, that India the support that India gave to Bangladesh, and we faced a genocide in 71, and India hosted about 10 lakh refugees. And not only hosted them, it gave them wholehearted support. And when a genocide is taking place in Myanmar, we do not see that kind of support or help coming from India. So when one talks about neighborhood first, this is again a narrative which is coming up in Bangladesh, that okay, neighborhood first, but which neighbor is first? I mean, is it Bangladesh, or is it Myanmar, or is it what is India prioritizing then? I mean, these are different narratives that are coming up, and that's why I'm saying that connectivity is very important and people-centric. It has to be people-centric. But Rohingya issue, I would say that India's support or India's role during in this entire crisis will be people would will be keenly watching that in building up new narratives and taking this relationship forward. I'm talking not about regime to regime relationship or state to state relationship, but people centric relationship. That what was India's role during the Rohingya crisis. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Thanks so much for those very incisive remarks. I will now turn to Dr. Praveer Dey. Professor Praveer Dey is professor at the RIS, Research in Information System for Developing Countries. He is also the coordinator of ASEAN India Center at RIS. Praveer works in the field of international economics and a research interest in international trade and development. Praveer, to you, my question would be, there's been a lot of talk about connectivity in this discussion. And of course, connectivity has emerged as a major trope of India-Bangladesh relations. But going forward, apart from bilateral connectivity, how do you see the fate of regional connectivity initiatives where India and Bangladesh have been involved? For example, PCIM, which seems to be, have receded into the background. My basic question is that, going forward, what kind of trans-regional connectivity projects India and Bangladesh can work to shape a different paradigm of rules-based connectivity? Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Manish. Thank you very much for the invitation. And first of all, this webinar you are conducting has come out well. I mean, so much learning for me listening to all the luminaries on the subject. Replying to your question, in Bangladesh and India are partners in many sub-regional programs, like if you count the BBIN, for example. And presently, we are not talking about BBIN, it is BIN. And if you see the recently concluded or recently issued joint statement, there is a clear it's clearly mentioned that 3 countries will go ahead with the motor vehicle agreement. They invite Bhutan to join when the Bhutan is ready, and they make their mind on the connectivity motor vehicle agreement. So what these 3 countries should do, and Ambassador Vikram Doraisamy, when he was in charge of BBIN motor vehicle agreement, and he knows it very well, that the 3 countries, they need to call a meeting, they need to sign, get it, protocols are ratified, and start moving with the agreement. It's very simple, but implementing it requires many political support, strong commitments from the civil agencies, private sector, and the government. So I think this BBIN motor vehicle agreement, we should, if we implement, it will give huge change to the trade and transportation, dynamics in the South Asia sub-region, particularly Eastern South Asia. Here is another development, and we also need to factor in, that is, next year, Bangladesh is coming up with their bridge at Padma. So once this bridge is ready, the transportation linkages for Bangladesh is western side and also eastern sides will see huge change. So whenever we talk about the connectivity, these bridges like Padma Bridge and some other programs like border development, which is with the northeastern part of India, like Dauki, Tamabil, or some of the projects which Indian government and Bangladesh government jointly are implementing, connecting northeastern states like Tripura, Meghalaya, with the Chittagong port and beyond. So I think this Bangladesh is certainly a game changer. Many things are happening. Joint statement hasn't given any small role for small person like us to contribute. It has come out so well, and but still, there are many things can be done. As you said, the BCIM, I am not very much optimist on the BCIM economic corridor projects, and the geopolitics. Rather, I would insist that Bangladesh presently, if you look at their government export, about 35 billion, mostly these are, these garments are based on the quotas. Now, if Bangladesh is going to be a developing country just for, I think, 1.5 years from now, these quotas will certainly disappear or start disappearing. So the nearest market with these high-end garment products, as well as processed food and several other, products of Bangladesh origin, like pharmaceuticals, ceramics, services industries. Bangladesh has a brilliant minds, many scholars, experts. So they should look at East, right, or act East. And what India should also acknowledge, that Bangladesh is very much part and parcel of India's Act East policy, or renewed version of the Act East policy. That's what I think. So here the regional connectivity, like trilateral highway, which Ambassador Anil Wadhwa said, that is a project that Bangladesh, instead of BCIM, please look at a trilateral highway, which is Ambassador High Commissioner Doraisamy is very much active in putting it. It's quite attractive project for the entire Bangladesh economy, both from the point of view as Indo-Pacific as well as its linkage with the ASEAN economies. Just to stop here, before I stop, Bangladesh is planning to do several bilateral FTAs, because joining on ASEAN board needs lots of procedures to be completed. Bangladesh is not a sectoral partner. Bangladesh has to be, first as a joint sectoral partner, then moving into summit level, etc., etc. It may take time, but Bangladesh is planning to negotiate bilaterals with Indonesia, for example, Thailand, several other ASEAN countries. If they go and start negotiating free trade agreement with some of the ASEAN countries with which India is bilateral FTA is up and running, this will help both India and Bangladesh strengthen the value chain bilaterally is there, as well as for the third country market like ASEAN. So, and this Bangladesh, ASEAN, India, and Japanese interest in all the three will actually strengthen the Indo-Pacific, both economic dimensions as well as security. So these are the things which will be unfolding in the next couple of years. So I will stop here, and if you have any more questions, I can pick up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Praveer, for those very, very valuable remarks on the way forward for connectivity. We have got several questions from the audience, but the time is very limited. In the next 15 minutes or so, we would like to at least address 4 or 5 of them. So the question, there are 2 questions which are addressed to High Commissioner Doraiswamy. The question number 1 is from Gautam Lahiri. He's a senior Indian journalist who writes a lot on Bangladesh. There is concern in Bangladesh about next bulk supply of vaccine from India. When is this next supply expected? That's number 1. And then we have another question from Eknata Saha, who is asking which steps are undertaken by the government of India to stop killing people at border. Over to you, Vikram. Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, I can hear you. Very quickly, first of all, on the vaccine supplies, I think there is a comprehensive effort underway in India to look at the totality of obligations in terms of contracts that have been signed by Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech for a variety of recipient countries, including obligations to COVAX Alliance, etc. Within that, to see how best that and the totality of India's own requirements, let's not forget that there is a pandemic there also. That sort of an approach has to be addressed first. So I think that will help us come to the totalities of numbers that can be moved. But as you already pointed out, of the 60 million plus vaccines that have been sent out, almost 25% have gone to Bangladesh so far. So the priority that Bangladesh gets in this is already clear. As to exact dates and all of that, I don't think I have the answer for that. But the process is in place. Second, on the subject about deaths on the border, I think, as I have been saying repeatedly on this one, there is a need for a comprehensive effort to tackle the problem at its root, which is that there are 3 things that are happening. There is deprivation in certain districts, lack of economic activity on both sides, which is leading to a number of there is pressure for illegal economic activity on the border. That leads to people crossing over the border on both sides to try and sort of carry out illicit economic activity. When those illicit economic activities are constrained by border security forces, that leads to localized conflicts, typically at the dead of the night, some of which escalates into violent incidents. Now, this is necessary to be tackled through comprehensive management of the border, through much greater coordination between the border security agencies to prevent people from crossing, through awareness building campaigns, and through efforts by both sides to increase developmental activity on both sides. Already, the border security force in India is taking maximum, operating on the basis of maximum restraint. They use pellet guns, they use non-lethal equipment, in the exception of the cases where they are directly attacked. Now, it's important to see within this that not every incident of violence that happens on the border, which is fairly easily ascribed to the BSF, isn't actually at the hands of BSF. There are criminal gangs operating, and anything that is actually happening across the border, meaning in other words, across the fences and across the border, is actually not at BSF hands. And therefore, the figures that are put out in the public domain and the figures that are put out in the BSF official statistics are vastly different. And it is important to note that in the actual account of these very tragic incidents, the statistics of the number of Indians who have also been either maimed or killed in incidents on the border is almost exactly the same in terms of numbers. So this is a complex problem. It needs both sides to make a much greater effort to try and address it at its roots. And I think this is what is essential, and we should really work much harder to do that.
Right. Thank you, High Commissioner. The next question is for Honorable MP Naeem Razak. This is from Vijay Nayak, a senior journalist. He's saying that the question of infiltration from across the border from Bangladesh is often raised by India's Home Minister Amit Shah. In what ways Bangladesh would like to address this issue? In what ways Bangladesh would like India to address this issue? I hope the question is clear.
I hope the answer would be satisfactory. Of course, there is different narratives. Again, when I do speak about these things, these are different narratives that is politicized. The Honorable Home Minister of India, of course, he in his different deliveries, he has been very clear in elaborating the relationship between Bangladesh and India, and that has had impact across the board in terms of the relationship between Bangladesh and India. So when we talk about internal domestic politics, that's a different notion than of the diplomatic relations that we have. Of course, Bangladesh has had as Ms. Mohsin has said, that very sensitive issues related to the religious-based politics in Bangladesh. But nevertheless, I think it is very clear that Bangladesh and India has maintained a relatively clear perception and agendas into how to deal with our own domestic agendas. And we are very much clear in how to deal with our own domestic problems. And hence, I think the younger population, when I do actually deliver my opinion, I do reflect on the opinion of the youth and the perception of the youth of Bangladesh. And they are very much open to the whole idea of collaboration, linkage, and multilateral, multi-level engagement. And hence, these engagements will clarify any sort of ambiguity, any sort of, I think, misunderstanding, miscommunication that lies. I think this is not a major issue that lies between these two countries, and I think we have a good relationship and we should maintain as such. Thank you.
Thanks. The next question is for Ambassador Haq. Ambassador Shahidul Haq, this whole webinar, we have had a very positive, very optimistic view of India-Bangladesh relations. Of course, there are some contentious issues, and when we talk of that, TISTA comes to the mind. This question is from Madhusri Das from the High Commission of Canada in India. How important is the delay in settling the TISTA river water issue? A major, spoiler in India-Bangladesh relations. And on a similar line, we have this question from Habibullah Sarkar. What will India take step? How will India? How do you see the resolution of the TISTA issue? Question not quite clear. From Bangladesh point of view, how do you see it going forward?
Good. Thank you very much. I think the TISTA issue relates to the bigger issue of water management and water sharing. From the Bangladesh side, the expectation is that whatever has been initialed would eventually be implemented, and the Prime Minister Modi and other political functionaries in India has assured and reassured Bangladesh that it will certainly implement the TISTA. And we all know that where it's currently stuck. my argument is somewhere else. I think time has come when Bangladesh and India should look at water resources development and governance in a bigger way, rather than looking at individual Tista and Gonga or Meghna. Rather than what we were saying for quite some time, and I see a resonance of that in India also taking root now, the whole basin-wide management. And I think there, if I am asked to pick up one issue which will define and redefine and shape the relationship in future, water is certainly one, because then it gets related to the blue economy, the climate change, the disaster, and every kind of thing. So if we put water in the center and some of the related issues, that's an area that we have to really look at. And it's a hard issue. It's not easy. Nowhere it is easy subject. And that's where we need to work on. I'm glad that some progress has been made over the last 2 years, where there has been an agreement to come out with a framework agreement, which is also there in the joint statement, to look at least the 7 rivers that crisscrosses our area. But this is a vital issue to create what you call Maitri 2.0. So I'll stop here. But can I take 2 minutes and reflect on one issue? Or
What
you
is
want?
that? No, please go ahead. Mr. Haq,
But we talk about future of the relationship. We have been talking about the functional level, where things are moving gradually and moving to bring in good outcome. But I think often we forget that there are also deep social level of understanding of the issue, which supports the functional one, and that there is a huge gap there. And I think we have never made an endeavor like this or others to look at both the social and functional level of collaboration together. And that's what I was thinking, that if you go to Europe, you'll see they have also thousands and one difficult issues, much lethal than us, because they have been fighting wars all over the world. And among themselves for hundreds of years. But they have resolved it by way of sitting down and thrashing out what we need to do. Possibly time has come when we should have a think tank, sort of a run, govern, managed by people from both the country, not just collaboration between the two institutions, working together, looking at some of the difficult issues like water, border management. Border has been a point of contention is Europe. They have fought over borders. So we are yet to do that. So that these I think we need to look at if you think of looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Haq. That's a very positive note to end on. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the webinar. There are a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we are really constrained by time. But in deference to the audience who asked questions, I will just read out some of the questions and the people who pose them. This is for future discussion, and they feel that their questions have been factored into account. So we have this question from Mahua Venkatesh, who's saying that what should be done to strengthen people-to-people contacts and trade along the border? What steps have been taken? Number 2 question, there are a lot of questions about China, that whether there should be competition or whether there could be competition or rivalry between India and China. We have a Chinese journalist who's asking what's Japan's role in Bay of Bengal in the future. And since India is looking to embrace Dhaka in Indo-Pacific, will it lead to a competition with China? Similarly, there are many questions, and of course, on people-centric foreign policy. I think all this wide range of questions, what they suggest is this very robust interest in India-Bangladesh engagement, and that is a positive takeaway from this webinar, that it has inspired so much interest and attention. We have come to the end of the webinar, and it's my pleasant duty to thank all our eminent speakers who have found time amid their numerous pressing engagements, to be here for this very intense and animated 1.5 hour, 90 minutes of discussion. Thanks to all the speakers who are here. My special thanks to High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy, who has to go somewhere immediately, and that's why we're concluding. We could have gone for some more time. High Commissioner, thank you so much for your suggestions, for your presentation. Ambassador Haq and all of you, and of course to the fabulous audience who have stayed right till the end and asked so many questions. This shows the way forward. I would like to end very briefly by just saying, quoting Bangabandhu, who said that my greatest strength is the love of my own people, and my greatest weakness is also the love for my people. The fact that I love them too much. I think this love for people, this people-to-people relationship, what Ambassador Haq talked about, not a populist but people-centric foreign policy, is a way forward. Of course, there are very interesting, very complex issues, but broadly speaking, we are on the right trajectory. And going by the recent summits and participation of our leaders in the joyous and historic celebrations, it is possible to reimagine a new future of South Asia that is more physically, culturally, and emotionally integrated. More power to India-Bangladesh relations. Ladies and gentlemen, a fabulous audience, speakers, thank you so much from India Rights Network and all of us. We look forward to seeing for the next debate on India-Bangladesh 3.0. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.